This is Aj McGinty, and you're listening to Bears Beyond the Gate. Enjoy.
And he's going to score Bristol's third try.
What
Great play by Augustine Pichon.
And Bristol have made a bit of history, winning the European Challenge Cup for the first time ever.
And Bristol have won. They won the local derby.
You're listening to Bears Beyond the Gate, a Bristol Bears podcast made by fans for fans. We're 2.5 season card holders at Ashton Gate who love the club, the game, and all things Bears. I'm Pete, and I'm joined by Miles and Lee, and we are back in the Bristol Beer Factory Taproom. We haven't been here for a while, boys. We had a bit of a Christmas break, obviously, and then our couple of midweek pods. We were down the pod pad with the Christmas tree, but we've had to come back here. And boys, we've been very kindly been given a little beer by the lads here to drink. Miles, what are you drinking?
This is the second pint of the same beer. It's absolutely amazing.
He's halfway through that.
Oh, I do a second one. And it's called This Side of Paradise. Wow. Describes itself as a smoked porter. Absolutely amazing. Just the right touch of smokiness and a winter porter.
It is well balanced, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, we've all got a pint of that.
Yeah, we have. Yeah.
It was recommended to us, and yeah, Miles, you said it. It's a really nice brew. This Side of Paradise. I thought that's what the Duchess usually says when she wakes up every morning, isn't it?
What, when she's in a hotel room?
Yeah. When she's away on business.
Quite.
And but Lee, you did also have another pint, didn't you?
Yeah,
someone else.
I got in a little bit earlier because obviously, I like to prepare for these things. So I've gone for my tried and tested espresso martini stout, which is absolutely superb. I love it.
Love it. Well, we love the Bristol Beer Factory. We love drinking their beer, but we also love doing the pod and talking about the Bears, and thankfully it's not raining today. So and the guys not in the kitchen, so there's no bagging around. So it's just us. So hopefully we'll get through this okay. But before we start our normal stuff, boys, there's one thing I want to say to the listeners straight away, and I'm sure a lot of them are aware that we've been nominated. I'd say a short list, but there's like 10 podcasts in the Sports Podcast Awards 2024 in the Best Rugby Pod category. This is something that's got a mix of pods in. I mean, there's some independent pods like us, but there's some big heavy hitters. And this is actually something that one of our friend pods, the Harlequins podcast, who we've got a good relationship with, they actually won this 2 years ago, boys. Yeah. They won it. So at the moment, after the shortlist, it goes to a public vote. And there is a kind of link to a website, and you have to sign up. You can opt out of their newsletter immediately. You just have to say a couple of things like how many podcasts you listen to a week. Really easy. And I was just thinking, boys, if every single listener, if they haven't done already, and we do know that a lot of our listeners have already done it, because we've been pushing it around the socials, but it struck me that if at the beginning of this podcast we say, if we could ask for every single listener to submit a vote for us, we'd have a decent number, and we'd really, really appreciate it. And let's be honest, boys, Bristol doesn't look like they're going to get any silverware this season, and maybe not next. So we do need to. This may be the only chance of silverware. For
and also, I mean, I think all our listeners would agree if there's one podcast we could beat, it would be Quins.
The Quins, because the year they won it.
Yeah, they won everything.
They won everything, didn't they?
No, it was. You're right. They won that podcast award when they won the.
They were riding on the crest of a wave.
Fans were cock-a-hoop. So let's, as you're right, let's get some. Well, we don't know if we're going to get some silverware. It could be just brass, wood, anything, couldn't we? But let's bring it home. Yeah, vote for us, please.
Yeah. So what we'll do is I will put a link in the program notes that should come up in whatever podcast platform. The bit where we say about what the pod's about. So there should be a direct link in there. But if for whatever reason that don't work, just Google or just search, other browsers are available, just search for Sports Podcast Awards 2024 and then just find the rugby category and you click onto it and do the business. It's a proper David against a few Goliaths.
Yeah.
So we need a few people with slingshots out there, don't we?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Anyway, that's enough plugging. That's enough plugging, yeah. And shameful plugging by us, but hey, why not?
We want to win it, don't we? At the end of the day, we'd love to win it. There's no...
Yeah.
No, we've been nominated for it. We're in it, and what's the point in being in it if you don't want to win it?
Yeah.
So
and for any new listeners out there, I mean, we've been doing this 4 and a bit years. This is our 5th year.
Yeah.
It's a big shift.
Yeah.
It's nice.
And to be fair, after the first couple of years, which went really well, we've had to really battle on, haven't we? You know, we've had dark occasions. You know, where
we don't. You know, you're right. We're passionate fans. We chat about the game. We haven't had a lot free over the sort of past 4 years, have we? And we're like, you know, we're slowly getting there with a free beer here and there from our good friends at the Beer Factory, but something else would be quite nice, wouldn't it?
Absolutely,
brilliant.
A nice bit of silverware.
Love it. Okay, well, obviously we've got a game to talk about. It was the Champions Cup pool game against the Vodacom Bulls from South Africa. Last week we heard a little bit about them from our friend AP, and we found out they're from Pretoria, and you know, had a very big history. He thought that they might send a half decent side. Now, actually, they did. The 4 players they didn't send were the 4 World Cup players. And after the game, Jake White, the coach, explained that he has to balance giving them time after the World Cup. But I did actually contact AP before the game and said, what's this team look like? And he said it's a pretty good team. There's some pretty good players in there, and we may not be household names to us, but so I think, I don't know about you boys, I went down to the game thinking this could be. This is definitely not a cast iron win under the belt, and as it turned out to be. So before we talk about it, what we'll do is we'll hear from a couple of fans. But unfortunately, I didn't get round to doing a short, sharp summary tweet this week, boys. But actually, in the place of it, we did actually speak to a couple of Bulls fans after the game.
Brilliant lads.
Brilliant lads. One of them was a dual fan. He's got a Bears season ticket holder, South African, living in, he lives in Yatton, of all places. He doesn't even live in Bristol. Okay. And then it was just a couple of random guys that just gave us a bit of a short, sharp summary themselves. And then it involved a little bit of Afrikaners at the end.
Nice.
So, which we think we know what it meant, and we think it was polite. But anyway,
if it's not, though, we should put a disclaimer in right now. If there's any swear words in.
Yeah, exactly. So before we start talking about the game, let's hear what they had to say.
Hi, this is Steve from Nelspruit, now living in Maidenhead. What a great game. Go the Blue Bulls. Big shout out to the Bristol Beer fans. Absolutely top bunch of people. What a lucky day. Cheers, Thunderbuller!
So I'm here with a Bulls fan, Andrew Harris, big follower of the pod. He's also a Bristol Bears season ticket holder, but we're going to find out a little bit about him. So Andrew, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, I'm Andrew Harris, from Pretoria originally. The accent doesn't quite sound like it anymore. Served 8 years in the British military. Now a proud Bristol Bears fan, but also a natural Blue Bulls fan, as being my home team. So lovely to be here at Ashton Gate as always. I'm here every other week whenever we can play. Always lovely.
So obviously today, because I can see you're wearing a massive kind of headpiece that's got a couple of horns on it. You've got your Bulls shirt on. You've got a Bulls flag on. Clearly, you put aside your Bristol Bears season ticket today. Obviously, a good win for the Bulls. But I mean, what's your comments on the game?
Yeah, no, I think a big part of it was our forward pack. From the first scrum, we made ourselves dominant. We got into the guys, won ourselves a penalty, and moved forward. If we can keep doing that throughout the game, it's usually a good winner for a game. I believe is a good scrum. Backline wise, we got a former Springbok fly-half, Jan Goosen. He's always, he's an unbelievably versatile player. He can do what he needs to do. We've got a strong scrum off and a good centre pairing. Our back three, it wasn't the back three that we were hoping for with Kirtley, Kano Moody and Willie LaRue. But you know what? We still got a good strong back three, and the guys really performed with Sergal Peterson scoring a try. Really happy with the guys. They performed. coming down to a lower altitude, they probably had a lot more oxygen. So for them, it was a lot easier for them to breathe. The fitness really proved it towards the 60-minute mark. It was a tight game, but then the Bulls guys really sort of started firing, and the fitness really came into play, and the guys did what they needed to do to score a bonus point win.
Okay, boys. Well, very, very passionate. Yeah, very passionate. The first one. But very complimentary as well about Bristol and our fans. And Andrew, who is the who did the second one, obviously knows a lot about the game. Yeah. Very interesting summary. And good to sort of hear that he's also got an affection for the Bears as well. But unfortunately,
he dropped that affection on the weekend.
Yeah. We might put a photo out because he was clearly pinning his colours to the mast for the Bulls because he had a Bulls hat on, he had a Bulls shirt on, and he had a Bulls flag tied around, and he had a massive beard. He was a
proper lad, wasn't he?
He was a proper Bull.
Proper
you couldn't miss
geezer.
him. But anyway, boys. Well, look, let's have a look at the game, or let's have a think about it. And of course, me and you, Miles, were at the game and saw it live, and then Lee, you watched it on telly. So it's kind of interesting sometimes to have different perspectives, of the game. I watched the first half back, so I haven't seen the whole game back. So I'm kind of going on a little bit of my memory, but you've probably got a better one. So Miles, first of all, I mean, ultimately it was actually quite a disappointing defeat. It was the biggest win the Bulls have ever had in the Champions Cup, albeit they haven't been in it that often.
No,
but that's not a great stat to be on the end of. Ultimately, we shipped a lot of points, particularly in that second half, coming on the back of a positive display last weekend against Sale. So, bearing all that into mind, I mean, what's your general thoughts on that game?
Yeah, disappointed. I mean, you're right. There was a team sheet from the Bulls. We had no idea what players they were going to bring. But I think initially we put out a team. The front row, I think, we were a little bit questioning, weren't we? A very youthful front row. We know that the South Africans inevitably being a big pack. We'll go on to talk about that. Disappointed. I think the manner of the defeat, getting no points at home, 17 to us, 31 to the Bulls. You could say, arguably, 4 fantastically worked tries from the Bulls, and a good try at the beginning from Williams to Marmion. And late on, some tries to try and get a point at the end, but that nothing came of that. On
paper, it wasn't good, was it?
On paper, it doesn't look good, does it? A 31-17 defeat at home. But, we were there. They sent a very powerful side, very strong, very fast. And I think at no point, really, did I think we were going to overturn that side.
I mean, you say that, and I kind of agree with you, but I mean, it was only 10-7 at half time, and we'd had quite a lot of possession in that first half, I think, and actually visited their 22 quite a lot, but obviously
came away with not a lot,
and they did have one try disallowed that on another day could have been the other way. So was it? What do you think that first half, Lee? What did you feel watching it on telly? Because I felt quite confident in that first half a little bit, and I thought at half time we might have a chance to go up a gear. What do you think?
Well, I mean, watching the game on TV, what was blatantly obvious is when we did get into the red zone, we coughed the ball up again way too many times, and you just cannot, as Miles said, that was a good ball side, not the best ball side, but a good ball side, and you can't afford to make those mistakes. We coughed the ball up, and also I just felt like our kicks to touch were too short. They didn't go right into the corner, and they should have done, and then your rolling maul then has got at least a chance to go over. And I have to admit, I hate agreeing with Miles, but I have to. It was one of those games, even though it was only 10-7 at half time, it was a game that I never ever felt we were going to win. It just didn't feel winnable to me, the way we were playing, and it almost to me it looked like they could step up a level or two if they needed to, and that's obviously what they ended up doing.
I mean, it's interesting because one of the things I do remember from that first half is we were piling on their line, and we got really close, and for all intents and purposes looked like we were going to score eventually. and then Marmion was about to pass the ball, and it got kind of knocked out of his hand, and we thought, it was a South African doing it. Now I was thinking that's a blatant offside, and the refs missed it. But actually, when I looked at the replay, it was one of their boys counter-rucking into one of ours who went into Marmion as he's passing. Now, to me, that's streetwise from the South African and naive from us, is that we weren't giving our scrum half enough protection, and the South African identified that, and he basically, got our player to knock it out of the hands, and I just thought that probably is what you're saying. We just didn't have that physicality, and they had the physicality, to really make that possession count.
Well, it kind of reminded me of last week in the Cell game. Obviously we ended up winning that game, and we played fantastic, but one Randall was, we were thinking he's got a broken rib maybe, or broken back.
Yeah.
We didn't, and he didn't have that protection again, and it was again same scenario, wasn't it?
I know, and these things happen from time to time, but we go back to the things we're always talking about. If we actually want to win anything at the highest level, we just cannot afford little things like that to happen, because they can be crucial. If we'd scored a try then, we'd have been two tries to one. We might have got our peckers up, and we might have managed to put a load of points on and then held on in the second half. I mean, there's, what ifs really. But that's all we can do.
What was blatantly obvious, like to me, was that it was actual mistakes from our players this week. And I know a lot of times we blame the system and players are out of position or whatever, but it did feel like it was a lot of tiny errors. And the thing is, playing a team like this, I mean, Jesus Christ, they had some really good backs, didn't they?
They had some units.
Yeah, and you just think you cannot make those silly mistakes against teams.
I think we've got to be honest. I'll come to you, Miles. I just got to be honest. They were a good side. Yeah. But that's the sort of side you're going to meet in the Champions Cup. And it looks like it's kind of, we're not even going to get much further than. I mean, we shouldn't have been in it anyway, to be honest. But So what do you think, Miles?
I mean, I don't think. Did we expect them to be that fast and that strong and that fit? I think there's been a lot of sort of chat, hasn't there, on the social media about them being, are they're going to come from a nice sort of toasty 30-degree heat, aren't they, in South Africa, to 3 degrees? And then there was another bit of a joke saying, but they've been training at altitude. They arrive at sea level at BS3, and they were so quick, so fast, so fit. And it was quite apparent that we didn't look that.
Yeah.
That's maybe a bit unfair at Bristol. We are a fit team, but I do not think Pat really was expecting the speed of their backs. And they were just phenomenal.
They were
running down
above.
the pitch, weren't they? Absolutely, it felt like that. It felt like that.
I mean, their fullback and their winger. Their fullback's only just started playing for them, and he got man of the match.
He was so quick.
He was just. He was subtle. I know they on comms when I did watch it back. Their first try, he did this beautiful little drift out, which brought in Malins was duped.
He was.
And then created a 2-on-1 when there was a 2-on-2, and it was just so clever. He's just like the outside drift, and Malins made a bad decision. And you've got to say to Malins, this is an international player. He should have. You've always got to trust your inside defender, which was Gabs, and Gabs is a good defender. And I think that was a pretty basic error from Max. And then that winger, I mean, he still had 20 yards to go, didn't he? And there was no stopping that boy.
Gone, powered. But the one thing we've always said was that the one thing I think we're lacking in our squad is a couple of real dirty, gnarled Saffers, isn't it? And I just thought, it was just looking at them, I just thought we are just missing one or two just real dirty,
and even just their names.
Oh, I know.
The two locks, they had names that just sounded filthy.
Sounded hard,
and it just that's what we've always said. Just get a couple of South Africans in your side, in the forwards, and it just is mental. It's psychological. It makes you think that they're harder than they probably are. But those guys were just they were rock, weren't they?
And it's like when we were chatting to Andrew after, like off record, Pete, wasn't it? And he was saying the same thing basically. It's like we've got some great players at Bristol Bears, no doubt about it. But we're almost like we've got flair players, but we haven't got the grunt and the nastiness to back those flair players up.
And although I think we should at this point hold our hand up for Josh Caulfield again. I mean, I thought he did everything he could, everything within his abilities to be that person. And I think, in the long term, him and Joe Batley do complement each other quite well. I mean, I think the grunt thing takes us off quite nicely to sort of mention the scrum. And obviously it's an area that none of us have any particular expertise on.
But we have eyes.
We have eyes.
We saw what happened,
didn't we? Apart from the fact we saw 6 scrum penalties in front of our eyes. I mean, there's been some chat on social media. Some people say the Reynal just got it in his head that we were the weaker side, and as soon as a ref gets it in your head, you're in trouble, and they sort of forget to do it on a case-by-case basis. I mean, I think we've got to be honest, we had our 3rd string props. No disrespect to Graham, Slaw and Kloska, but if you think Genge and Sinclair are our first, Jake and Max are our 2nd string, George and Sam Graham's were our 3rd, so we took a risk. It was a big risk for them to go out, and I mean, and it didn't work.
Who do you blame for that, Pete?
Well,
come on.
I blame the fact that it's unfortunate that we didn't have our 2 premier front row playing. So there was no choice, and it was proven really that Max and Jake weren't really up to that level anyway. So who else could we pick? So Pat took a risk on putting the young ones out just to see, and as I joked, Max and Jake were our bomb squad, but they're not really. They were more like the pod squad coming on, weren't they?
Well, it was worrying though, because they came on at 33 minutes apiece, which we've used this tactic before, haven't we? That didn't work.
I mean, it's 2 ways of looking at it. You either put them on first, and then they get mullers when they get tired.
We put the youngsters on.
But going back to your question about who to blame, well, what you're trying to angle at is it's selection. But I think it's more than that. I think it just proves that you just have to recruit a filthy front 5, and perhaps that is something we have been lacking over, and we have talked about this, and lots of people talk about it. That it's something that we haven't really addressed. We have talked about by spending our money on the right places. Now we talked about this after the game, is that it made us think of John Afoa, didn't it? He wouldn't have allowed that to happen. No. Even at the age of whatever he was, 58, he was still doing it. So 2 points. I blame perhaps the long-term strategy that we didn't look at this as something really important. And poor old, we'd say, well, we're trying to develop props, but the Ben Solomon twins seem to have gone off the radar. We've got Andrew Turner, young academy lad, but none of them seem to be coming through. The other thing I'll blame is just the whole point of the fact that scrums you can get penalties that seem quite incomprehensible and can change the game a lot. And I think that's a bigger blame, is that why should scrums have that much effect on the game? It clearly helped the Bulls. It gave them loads of field position, took pressure off, which they exploited. And actually, is it should there be free kicks for certain types of infringement at a scrum rather than always just... And I think the other thing I think was a bit harsh is that poor old Max Heath gets carded. He wasn't cheating. No. Like you get carded for everything else. Like they had about 4 deliberate knock-ons and only one bloke got carded. That's cheating. Yeah. Or it's whereas he just got carded for not being quite as strong as the person off him, and also it wasn't all his fault because he's not getting it from behind.
Maybe so it's
kind of like it's a bit odd that you get seriously penalised for something that you're not doing wrong. Anyway, you were going to say.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, I think, and we know we've got Genji back, and that's massive for us. We know Sinks is going to be off, but what I will say is that if we don't sort the front row out, then it doesn't matter what we do. If Pat's plans or visions for the future just will not come to any fruition if we don't have rugby going forward on the front foot. And ultimately, every decent side has that. We haven't got that now, and we need to address that. That needs to be the most important area that we focus on now. And until we have that, our plans are pie in the sky for me.
I mean,
that's a good point. Miles?
Your worry is, you're right. We seem to be fixated. We've potentially sorted out the back row, haven't we, with our signing next season, 2 fantastic Pumas coming in. But you're right. Where are we going with the front 3? Pat's vision is Championship Cup, winning the Premiership. we're all right against most of the Premiership sides, aren't we? We can hold our own.
Yeah.
But you're right.
But we are 8th.
But we
We haven't really been schooled, though.
We haven't been
fair,
schooled.
we?
You remember that Northampton game a couple of seasons ago where we were pushed back over our number 8, and that was embarrassing. We haven't been schooled. We've been pretty solid in the Premiership. But you're right. His aspirations and his target is Champions Cup. We've just proved this weekend, albeit that the South Africans have brought in a different dynamic to the Champions Cup. It's just not big enough, is it? It's just not strong enough. And our running style of rugby is fantastic to watch to a certain extent. But if you don't get front foot ball off a scrum, our system just proved on Saturday all fell apart and nothing worked. Your backs can be brilliant as they might be,
but they need a platform.
You're right.
It's like you don't put a ladder against the wall and then have 3 rungs missing at the bottom of it, do you?
No.
You're
right. I mean, I couldn't really recollect a scrum on Saturday that we won, against the head. Really, we quickly got a ball back if we were lucky, and it was.
I think we got one free kick.
Pretty painful to watch, wasn't it?
And we had one scrum which we didn't lose. So I think we lost. We had 6 scrum pens, 1 free kick for us, and 1 that we managed to get the ball out, and it did. And we luckily got it out afterwards. It's not. And I think. Yeah, I mean that's pretty obvious, isn't it? But I go back to say that we didn't have a massive amount of choice, and it was always going to be difficult. And that you can't really blame if you can only put out what you've got. And they did their best, but it does kind of raise the question of the future, doesn't it?
Again, we're not criticising the players because ultimately we were up against the better side.
And actually, and if I mean, a lot of people think the Max one was quite harsh on him. That the guy, he got done for like angling in, and the South African was pretty much, drilling his neck, sideways. So, but it is what it is. We didn't lose that game just on the ref. We lost it on just not being good enough, really.
Well, I think we could go as far as to say some of the kicks as well. They didn't go right into the corners. So straight away, then you're rolling Moore hasn't got really a chance because you're so far back then against a team that are already really strong. And you need to be right up there on the try line to have any chance of going over.
It seems a bit of a theme that we are a bit conservative on that, but I guess it's risk and reward. If you go too close to the corner and miss it, it's embarrassing, isn't it?
I'd rather be embarrassed, Pete, and go for the corner, and than not and come away.
So I have to agree with Lee, which is quite rare as well, isn't it? And you, that their number 10 kicks from hand, lengthwise were phenomenal.
Yeah,
AJ was a little bit reserved, and you're right. You can't get a front foot maul off a kick that's short in the 22. And that was a little bit disappointing, but that's something we can work on. He's only just come back from serious injury, and hopefully those kicks will get longer.
Yeah. Okay. Well, look, boys.
And if you're kicking at altitude,
yeah, of course. I mean, that guy's just used to kicking it about 100 miles. Well, look, let's kind of wrap this up a little bit in terms of the game. I mean, if you look at social media and the fan forums, there is the normal kind of quite wide divide in terms of what people thought about the game. There's one hand, there's quite a lot of people saying it's just yet another example of us being, not good enough, pat out, all this sort of stuff. Then the other end of the spectrum, people are saying, oh no, they played well, it's just they're a good side and we're still, we're playing well, we've got good players, we just got to back them, we just keep backing them, and just keep backing them and keep backing them and it will come good. I mean, fundamentally, there was some positives in that game. I thought, we look like we've got more of an attacking style. I think AJ McGinty is adding a little bit of subtlety to our attack. Gabs and Jimmy Williams and of course, Bernard, Johan van Ren, JVR, should say.
It's not easy to say, is it?
I mean, we have, when you break it down to players, we've got some good players, but so where do you sit in it? What was that? Where do you sit in the continuum of that game? Where is it in the middle?
I think I sit in the point that we are never going to get an 80-minute performance out of this team and squad, are we, in this system? Well, look at the stats. They score 3 tries in a 16-minute period. We score one try at 19 minutes and 2 tries in the last 6 minutes when the game is already lost. And we cannot continue to play segmental games, as segmental periods of game carry all those minutes of genius and minutes of poor play. And I don't know where we go from here to get a sort of, not 80-minute, but a solid performance of even 60 minutes that are going to stop teams scoring fairly easy tries against us.
I think what you're trying to say is, I mean, basically we had the same against Lyon, didn't we? All but we managed to win that game.
Yeah.
The last minute Sheedy drop goal. But again, we switched off. We did the same thing in the same game. And, we're playing against the elite, teams here, and we just can't afford to do that. And, ultimately, I don't ever think we'll get an 80-minute performance, because I think we're playing against teams that will always have some kind of, you won't dominate a team for 80 minutes full stop.
No.
But as Miles has said, we cannot switch off for 15, 20 minutes in any game and expect to still have a chance of winning it.
Yeah, no, I think well said, boys. So basically, we're kind of somewhere in the middle between the two extremes.
Well, we've always been quite balanced, haven't we? I know a lot of people might say, we're critical of the club, but we're only critical when there's a reason to be critical, and I think we're quite a balanced view of our perspective. We take in everything, and we kind of between us. Like sometimes Miles is. Absolutely infuriated, and you are sometimes. But between us, collectively, we find a balance, don't we?
Yeah, we do. Okay, well, that's the game done. But there was just one other thing I wanted to talk about with regards to Saturday, and that was kind of the ground and the atmosphere. I mean, I missed the Chiefs game, obviously. Did I tell you I went to Australia for Christmas? And that was the last big home game, and it was, by all accounts, disappointing. And actually, it was a Friday night game, so the Friday night games have a different angle.
Yeah.
Saturday afternoon game, 3:15, big ticket giveaway. I did say on the pod last week that I was going to go to the game, feeling kind of happy and really it was a shot to nothing. Let's be honest, we didn't expect to be in it. Big side coming. I was going to go there to kind of enjoy the experience,
the atmosphere,
and
the ambience,
yeah, and I did. I've got to say I did, and I think because I had a positive mindset all the way through the game, I actually enjoyed the game. I enjoyed I enjoyed the warm up. It was just I quite like a Saturday. I've got to say, I enjoyed getting stuff done in the morning. Met Miles for a pint before. We went down there, and what I do like about Ashton Gate is after the game, because it's so open plan. You can wander around to the Lansdowne or stay in the Dalton, and you can see people, and it's a very sociable thing. And when there's loads of people there, regardless of the result or the performance, it was sociable. And I came away with a real kind of buzz. And I do think the club have tried to make the matchday experience better this season. I mean, the fireworks are better. There is a bit of pizzazz. They've got Q&As, it's good. But there was one thing that has divided a lot of opinion. And this is the playing of music clips at every opportunity in the game. So, Miles, do you want to take up on this? What do you think about this?
I think of people sitting on the fence. Actually, I think from reading various fan forums, I think a lot of people have jumped over the fence and run away. You're right. There was a fantastic. Believe it what you think, whether a free ticket giveaway is a good thing, a bit disingenuous, a sort of undercutting our season ticket prices. What the hell? There was 19,000 people there. That's potentially the second biggest crowd of the season, isn't it, bar Chiefs? And the atmosphere was fantastic. A sunny afternoon. We couldn't blimmin' see the pitch for the first 10 minutes. Fireworks, big tick. Crowd, big tick. And fan engagement, I thought was really good at the weekend. But you're right. I think on a couple of occasions now, we even had the Simba Cam, and I took the judges down.
Simba Cam did get a bit of a cheer.
It did. But it was the right time of day to take a baby along. It was not a Friday night match.
And actually, it was kind of done once towards the end. And it was done at a proper time when there was a proper gap.
I think I'm with you. I think I get where you're coming from here.
Simba Cam's taking its learning and stuff.
Yeah. The playing of music, I believe what we're going to say is inappropriate moments of the match where playing is continual was just a bit crap, if you excuse my language. And the tunes that were chosen, again, the DJ was a bit crap.
But this is what you're trying. This is the point you're trying to make, Pete, isn't it? Yeah. That do we not feel that we should have tunes more attuned to
the play on the field?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, okay, brilliant.
Exactly.
Which would make complete sense, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
If we're going to do something, at
Let's
least
do
make it relevant to what's going on.
Do it right and do it at the right time.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, any suggestions there, boys?
This is something I did. We talked about it during the game, but also I did send a tweet out to people, and I said basically, any thoughts on more context-specific music clips at each break in the play? For example, Another One Bites the Dust every time we pack down.
Yeah.
Or Blur's She's So High when a box kick goes up, or even Jump Around just before a line out. And I got 14 replies, and it was a definitely Marmite thing. So I'm going to read a couple out. Some people took it in the spirit of what it was supposed to be, which was to kind of say, I think the music's going to be here to stay, but let's make it sensible. Let's make it work for us rather than, because it was at random and it was done wrong, and sometimes it carried on when the thing, and I agree it was wrong, but some people, so here we go. So that was my question. Paul Hibbard said, we'll just turn it off altogether. Jonathan Legg said, I Need a Miracle was somewhat on point. It was very good. Paul Jordan, The Sound of Silence is quite pleasant tune for breaks in play. Very good. Brisley said, Half the Lies You Tell Ain't True, Stereophonics for Pat's interviews. Very good. Bad Hair Day by Feeder for BJVR when he scores. Beautiful. Sound of Silence because the constant music is overkill. And Lost at Home, the automatic, after every home game.
Well, I have to admit, someone said The Same as Silence from Disturbed, didn't we? Which is one of my partner's favourite bands. Yeah. And that was on point. I've actually got a couple.
Go on, then. I'll come back to the listeners. You tell me yours, Lee.
A couple have just come to me, right, as we've been saying this. And this is more like, it's like the when we played Chiefs. Yeah. I've got Living on a Prayer.
Living on a Prayer.
By Bon Jovi. And for a kick, for a penalty kick. Yeah. It's Oh So Quiet by Bjork. How about those two?
That. Because then it'd be the
or even,
like
we're showing our age.
Well, let's go
even like a Tribe Called Quest, Can I Kick It? When AJ converts it.
I mean, let's go for a few more, because I'm enjoying this. We got Leslie Bowman. She said Teenage Kicks following a successful conversion.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
What about Video Killed the Radio Star when we have a TMO?
Oh, that's nice.
And Hold Me Now during the scrum. That's me giving my age away, mind. Alice Pod, he's a regular listener. It was awful. Added to my boiling blood. Fair play.
That's Alcy Pod, isn't it?
Alcy Pod, not Alice
He's
Pod.
part of our Scottish contingent.
Yeah, I love it. Well, people
he's
have got...
bitter and twisted as well most of the time.
I love it.
Jerry G said, I think I missed again Phil Collins for conversions. Ben H90 said, I'm probably a miserable git, but I just found it annoying. To be fair, the Rugby On show did little for my mood, so we actually wove in a little summary into there, didn't he?
Nice.
Did it? Very clever.
Who sung that?
Nice. And then we had Chris Thorne, just asked BS to stop these facile interruptions. Love that. Good word, that. Facile. Nice. I'm not sure what he's talking about, us or the music.
The music.
We are supposed to be a serious rugby club, so treat the game, the players, and the spectators with some respect. Oh, Chris, he's got standards.
Oh, absolutely.
But
what we don't know that like the influence of TNT. Have they got anything to do with this new?
Who knows? Well, I do wonder, because their contract's up, so they've got to make be showing something. Very quickly, Aaron Breddy said, honestly, I find it really annoying and frustrating, especially when it was still playing after play restarted. Yeah. Understand it for longer breaks in play, but not every time. The Racketeer, never heard the Racketeer, never seen him reply to any of us or her or whatever. What about no music? And the atmosphere comes from the crowd. It always used to. Interesting. Yeah. And then finally, two more. The crowd is too quiet generally, so I think we probably need to show there's no point in the music by being louder. I see what he's saying. So we should get out. And then finally, nice one to finish off. Matt, I am Matt 86. Things Can Only Get Better by D. Reed. That's quality. Good one to finish.
I mean, we should say, though, we have spoken for about 3 years now about how the atmosphere can be better, like generated from ourselves, because we've got the Bristol chant, haven't we? But we haven't really got a lot else. We got Blackbird for a victorious game, a win.
but not for us.
There's nothing actually that we could do more to generate.
I think there's a couple of really good points raised there, and I totally respect the people that don't like the music. I think
I get that.
I'm of the thinking that if they get it right, and it is quite clever, but not all the time. When after someone scores, or after it's something that's happened and we're not waiting, then play something interesting.
Yeah.
But
I
make
do
it
feel
fun.
if it's more relevant,
Yeah,
then people will get more involved.
And I mean,
in
it's not difficult. You just work it out and put a playlist together, and then just press a button. I mean, the DJ just felt the DJ needs. He's made a start. He just needs to get a bit better. He needs to take some learnings, doesn't he?
Yeah. But I think he needs to work out his audience, and then work back from there.
But I think But having said that, I do respect all those people that don't want it. But one, I think the point that's really good that's come out of that is. Are they doing this because the atmosphere isn't that good? Now, I have heard it's a directive from above, so it's probably got nothing to do with the atmosphere. But there is an argument to say that we always say, the atmosphere's great, and the players say it afterwards because I think they have to. But it is flat at rugby sometimes. Now, and I think it's partly to do with the stadium. I think it's just a big football stadium, and a rugby crowd is a different sort of crowd. Now, at the Mem, my recollection, and it's a long time ago, was that it was a better atmosphere. It's more close near. I just felt that it was more atmosphere. There was terracing, wasn't there? So we've never been able to replicate that at Ashton Gate. But then they'll say, well, Bristol City, there's the group in the corner, they constantly sing. But football crowds are different crowds. So I've always thought rugby is a reactive crowd. When we're defending or when we're attacking, suddenly people come to life. We have tried this to try and get stuff going. And the South Stand do a good job quite a lot of the time, but we don't have any spontaneous songs to sing when there's a sort of lull in the atmosphere or when we need to G the players up. We are really relying on the players to G themselves up, and then we go on the back of
respond.
Now, I don't know. I don't think there'll be an answer. But other rugby clubs perhaps do have that. I think Harlequins, to be fair to them, do have more of a kind of proactive fan base. But I just don't know how we're going to do this and whether it has to come from the club to start it. But I don't know. What do you think?
I mean, it was funny because it was a couple of seasons ago where we actually stood up and started singing the Blackbird, didn't we?
We did.
Mid-game.
We did.
And that was quite a nerve-wracking experience, wasn't it? And we kind of I don't know, I think we probably over-exceeded our expectations of that. And I had visions of the Dolman stand rising behind us and all singing it in tandem. No. And what subsequently
they're going to just laugh at us.
What subsequently happened was the four of us were singing on our own.
But let's not forget the day that Genji came with Leicester when he'd already signed for us.
Yes.
And we planned he's coming home, and he did.
That did take off a bit more.
And the whole stadium started singing, "You're coming home, you're coming home, Genji's coming home." And I'm convinced we started that.
Absolutely. But it would appear, but there is a bit more directive from the club, because the screens now, in the corner when the crowd sprout, have got
it's animated,
Bristol animated. However, the fans are not really in tune with that sequence, are they?
But ultimately,
they are trying.
Let's finish on this, right? Because I do agree it needs to be player-led initially. So if we've got a team that are on that field and that are starting to play really good rugby and we're starting to, on the front foot, I'm 100% behind the fact the fans will get behind the team. 100%. And it'll be a better atmosphere all round. At the moment, we're 8th in the league. It's been pretty dire. We had 24,000 against Chiefs, which, let's face it, 20,000 of them Bristol fans, and we let them down. So ultimately, people aren't going to go in there with a party atmosphere head on, are they? If the players aren't doing it.
Okay, you're listening to Bears Beyond the Gate, a Bristol Bears podcast made by fans for fans. If you want to get in touch with us, you can contact us via Twitter at Bears Beyond Gate. You can follow our burgeoning Instagram account, which is Bears Beyond the Gate, I think, or you can follow us on Facebook, Bears Beyond the Gate, or you can send us an email at bearsbeyondthegate@gmail.com. Right, boys. I think we're not going to talk too much about the Connacht game, but one thing we do know is that if we get a bonus point win away at Connacht next Friday, there's an outside chance that we could get through to the knockout stages. but also may get. I haven't really looked this up, but you boys will know that we might. If not, we can get into the Challenge Cup final stages as well, can't we?
Yeah.
So
possibly, yeah.
So there is something to play for. There's something to play for. But Galway on a Friday night, we pretty much know what the weather will be like. It's going to be a big ask. Now, boys, we played Galway. We played Connacht a few years ago, and you may remember that we did have an interaction with their podcast, which is a kind of semi-professional podcast, the Craggy Rugby podcast.
Brilliant lads.
And really good lads, and actually proper pros. And I think that is a kind of spin-off of Radio Galway, so it's like the proper, they know what they're doing. And they've always been very, very happy to help. Anyway, I contacted them quite late on and asked them if I wouldn't mind sending a kind of voice note after the Connacht game against Lyon, just to give us a bit of an update of how they got on in Lyon and like how they've been doing all season. And then also, obviously, I mentioned the fact that the King of the Mead is up there, and and to find out sort of what they think about Joe Joyce and how he's getting on. But anyway, I very late on, towards just before we started recording, I had an email, and they just landed in Dublin, and they'd sent us a proper. It's 13 minutes, right? It is. I'm now setting expectations up. It's 13 minutes long. They do cover they talk a little bit about the game in Lyon. They talk about what Connacht have been up to, and then they actually then cut into an interview that Joe Joyce did after the game yesterday in Lyon. Right. And I thought at the very least it'd be quite nice for all our listeners to hear his voice again. Yeah. So what I'm going to do, boys, I'm just going to play that through now, and then perhaps after that we'll just have a very brief discussion about what sort of team we're going to send. So here we go.
Hi Pete, thanks for inviting myself and William from the Craggy Rugby podcast back onto your cracking podcast, Bears Beyond the Gate. We really appreciate the opportunity to chat to you guys again. We're in Lyon the morning after the night before. We enjoyed Brasserie Georges. If you're ever here, it's highly recommended place to go and have some fabulous food, great wine, excellent Armagnac, and just a cracking atmosphere. I have to say, myself and William enjoyed it immensely. It took away the pain of that defeat yesterday, William, didn't it?
Yeah, it helped a little bit. It was a good game yesterday. Quality wasn't particularly high, but there was a lot of end-to-end rugby. Lyon were just a bit better at converting their opportunities. Connacht had a lot of chances. It's the story of the season, really. Yeah. These games have gone away from them. Leinster at home, Ulster away, and this game now really following pretty much the same sort of pattern, which is an issue.
We're putting ourselves in the opportunity to win these games, and then we get into a 22, we get an attacking position, and we muck it up in one way, shape, or form. And it's, as you say, 3-4 games now we've done it. Yeah.
And we didn't see out the Leinster game, didn't see out the game in Edinburgh, which should have been a draw as well. That's where it really started. Europe's been disappointing. 1 point out of a possible 15 is not good enough. Nope. But Bulls did us a massive favour yesterday by tonking Bristol, I didn't see that coming, I have to be honest. I put that down as a Bristol win. So next Friday night's a shootout now. It's an opportunity. I suppose if Bristol were to win it, they might still be in Champions Cup.
Yeah, it's still the opportunity there for them. We don't. We're shooting for it. It's actually made. When we finished our game yesterday, we were definitely out of Champions Cup and probably out of Challenge Cup. But now we've got a chance to win a game. We will need a try bonus. We've only ever had one try bonus point winning game against an English side. And that was in 1997. And the current CEO, Willie Rowan, scored the first try that day. That is how difficult Connacht find to score bonus points, never mind beating English sides.
Yeah, I think maybe when they have beaten English sides at the sports ground, they haven't needed a bonus point, so maybe they haven't thought about that. They know on Friday night it's do that, and they have to stop Bristol getting a bonus point. Yes. So they have to win by 8 points and stop Bristol getting 4 tries. It's that simple. So it's do or die for them. They should be stronger selection-wise, I think. Yeah. 2 players had to pull out yesterday. One, as the game was about to start, he got injured in the warm-up. And one, Jack Ainger, who's a very good prop forward, was he was ill when he left, and he was running a very high temperature, so they just told him to stay at the hotel. Yeah. So that was disruptive as well, because it messed around with the bench, and it made your 23rd, 24th men had to be on the bench.
Yeah, so we ended up with like our third and fourth choice hooker and tight head, against a reasonably strong Lyon. They weren't at full strength, but they were still strong enough. And Demba Bamba is a hell of a player and really made a mess of our tight head.
Yeah, he did. But I think Bristol also had scrum problems as well.
Yes.
Which is interesting. So that'll be a fascinating battle on Friday night. It's 95% sold out. It will be fully sold out probably by Tuesday.
Yes.
So if anybody's coming over and they will have to get their tickets quickly because it's really is now full. It's not surprising. Look, Pat Lamb's coming back. Kieran Marmion. Aj McGinty played yesterday. He was the winning scrum fly half on our championship side in 2016. And Jake Heenan, of course. So that's a connection. But then Joe Joyce has landed in Connacht. And so has John Muldoon back to his former stamping ground after 5 seasons as in the coaching ticket. So that all adds to it. I suspect both sides will try to downplay that a little bit because they want to focus on the game.
Yeah.
But it's the reason the stadium is full for us. There'll be around 8,000 in there, and that's Pat Lam is still regarded very, very well in Connacht. I think he may be struggling a little bit at Bristol at the moment. Maybe it isn't going as well this season or maybe last season, but with the last time Bristol came to Galway, we were in COVID restrictions, so we had the weird thing of having a press conference. Pat Lam was in a building. We were sitting outside in the press box. We couldn't meet him. We got a chance to wave at him from a distance, but they were on a different. They were on path red, and we were on path green or something, and we had to stay in our little areas. So it'll be much more civilised this time.
You'd like to think, and the clan will give Pat a massive welcome because he really is held in such high regard. Only coach who ever won anything for Connacht, ever. We've never won anything since before, and he's a bit of a legend.
Yeah, he is, and Kieran Marmion is a legend as well.
Oh, pure legend.
So,
but the other legend that we want to know your listeners want to hear about is Joe Joyce. So here's what Joe Joyce had to say after the game last night.
Joe, I suppose you're going to give us some perspective on what that means to this group, because it was some game, it was back and forth, but to come away with nothing really must really hurt the whole team.
Yeah, it's tough, obviously, naturally. You go away from home, you put everything into it for 80 minutes and you come away with nothing after having our patches where we could really hurt them. So yeah, that's probably the thing about today. We was very good in spells, but we also let off in big spells as well, so ran away from us in the end.
Great start. I mean, that try, you had defended well for the first few minutes, you get a try. Then the game got very scrappy and they built up a big lead.
Yeah, it did. First of all, I didn't know Jance could run that fast, to be honest. So I think he was in shock from his try. That's what happened. But it's a shame that after it was such a great start, we couldn't put a foot down and really score again. But saying that, we came in at half time and we were confident. It was only a 10-point game. Every time we attacked, we were applying pressure. We looked like we were going to hurt them. So yeah, we all truly believe the half-time game was there for the taking. So just come in when the game's finished and have no points to take home is disappointing.
Yeah, 2 tries either side at half time and a brilliant maul try, McIlroy getting the touchdown. Yeah, that's where the game's with you. How did it get away? What do you feel you look at most in terms of why it went from 2017 to what it was in the end?
Well, stick to the maul point. Obviously, we mauled up the field to get penalties, get that opportunity to maul over to score. So we had a way into the game and that was our maul. And then we had another 2 chances 5 metres out again, and then we had a not straight, and then we had a clear sack, I thought, when we was marching. So there's fine margins, so there's the fine margin, especially away from home. You've got to get right. So yeah, it's disappointing, but saying that there were still positives in there. So we've really grown our maul recently. They had a lot of goes at us as well on our line, and we stopped them. So, but it's frustrating when you talk about positives and stuff. They only feel good when you take points as well. So I feel like I'm clutching a bit. Yeah,
I will say like there's maybe 10, 12 first choice players missing there because of injuries and everything else. But you're not a lot of players got a chance today.
Yeah, I don't want to get into. You could go around every province at the moment and say that, can't you? So I think that's a bit of a victim mentality. So I don't really want to entertain that, because at the end of the day, I think there's 23 players today that could have come here and got a result, and at half time it was still there for us, and everyone watching probably thinks at the end of the game that was a game we could have took points from as well. So yeah, I know what you're saying, there's some big players missing, but I think in every team, every sport, everyone deals with injuries, so it's not really an excuse. So we don't want to fall into that trap.
What was that like out there compared to the URC? What is it like playing in this kind of environment?
Obviously the venues, the crowd is. I think it's a loud crowd. I think when you're away from home, especially in France, the momentum can turn against you quick. So it's how you can get hold of that again. But obviously the physicality steps up. Just look at the locks in my position today. It was a big old units, but I think we managed that as well. So it's up to us to manage that for the whole game. But that's what I love this competition. You get to come to places like this and play against these players, and so big effort next week against Bristol. So looking forward to that one especially.
Thanks, Joe.
Cheers.
Okay, yes, Joe Joyce is becoming a very firm fan favourite in Connacht these days. He's made a big impact, hasn't he?
Yeah, he's made a big impact. He settled in very quickly. His father's from County Galway, Cornamona, which is Joyce country. Mm-hmm. His mum's from Tipperary, which is in Munster, but we won't talk too much about that, as he says himself. I think he was picked in the first pre-season warm-up game, and really from there it just drove on for him. He's played a lot of matches, he's played a lot of minutes, and because of that he's put himself about, basically. Yeah. And I think there is a realisation that he's a serious player. He came to play serious rugby. He has toughened them up a little bit. We've had some issues in the line-out. John Muldoon's been changing things, so Joe Joyce has been an important part of that. Yeah. But he's also, I think, learning a different type of rugby.
Yes.
He's talked about this, that it's faster.
More fluid, yeah.
It's more fluid, and it doesn't stop and start like yesterday's game did. It's full on most of the time, whereas he said in the Premiership it's full on defensively, but then it's full on attack, but they're slightly different. Yeah. And he's done a couple of press conferences with us. He was put up yesterday afternoon after the defeat, spoke very well, as he generally does. And he's making a name for himself in Connacht.
He certainly is. Okay, the last thing you wanted us to do was predict the result for the weekend. So, William, will Connacht first of all win, and will they manage to get a try bonus for only the second time ever against the English side? A winning try bonus. We've had 2 losing try bonuses, but
I think Connacht will win. I think they can get the try bonus. I think they have to. So I think when you have to, that changes it. But whether they can stop, I think they can win by more than 8 points. So the trick is, can they stop Bristol scoring 4 tries? Yeah. How strong a team are Bristol going to bring? Is
good question.
Is Kyle Sinclair coming? Is some of the other players who weren't selected yesterday, are they really interested? Well, they're not. Are they interested in the Champions Cup? Are they even interested in the Challenge Cup? Or are they going to try to focus on getting into the Premiership playoffs? Yeah, it's questions all round. Connacht, I hope, will take the opportunity that they've been given, thanks to the Bulls. Yep. To actually go for it. A game in the Challenge Cup in April would be no harm for them, because if they don't play in that, they stop and they start in the Six Nations, then they start again, then they stop for another 2 weeks. So we'll see. It's going to be an absolutely fascinating game, and it's going to be huge atmosphere.
Hopefully the weather forecast that we currently see, it's a bit far out. It's showing it's going to start raining on Saturday evening, so hopefully it doesn't. Hasn't rained in Galway for a week now.
That won't matter because the game's on Friday, Alan.
Oh, that's even better. I completely forgot. See, that's the night after.
The night after,
the night before.
Yeah,
so
we won't
Friday
talk.
Night, well, we should be good then. Friday night.
Yeah, Friday. The weather for Friday is good. It's going to be cold and clear. So if you're travelling over, can we recommend that you go to a pub called Murty's, which is the rugby pub. They sponsor our radio coverage on Galway Bay FM. They are the rugby pub in the city. Good food, great drink.
Food. It's not good food, it's great food.
It is great food. Good beer. And there's even
cocktail bar.
Well, there is, but the rugby supporters might be interested in the fact that there are now 4 IPAs available there if you're into your real ale, all produced in Ireland and all very good, because I've tried them all. But it's the place to go. You'll meet Connacht fans, you'll meet genuine rugby people. It'll be buzzing from around Friday evening. And it's only 10 minutes walk to the ground, 8 minutes walk.
It's not even that, William. You walk slower than
I
me.
walk very slow. But if you're on the open terraces, get there early if you want to get a good vantage point. And we look forward to seeing a lot of Bristol fans in Galway at the weekend. And you can go back to Murty's then and commiserate with yourselves, because Connacht are going to win.
I think they will win too, William. I think.
All right, lads. Well, as you can see, that's kind of proper professional podcasting.
Lads are brilliant, aren't they?
Really good. Very knowledgeable. Alan and William, I should say.
Yeah.
And great stuff. So, I mean, it was all fairly self-explanatory about there, and it's really good that Joe.
I mean, they did well to understand Joycey, didn't they? Those are the Irish boys over there. Good on him.
I did watch a bit of the game actually, and Joycey was playing, and he's done well. He's done well. He's their Premier. They love him.
He's now sounding like he's going to be a Connacht legend, isn't he? As well as a Bristol legend. I mean, good on the lad.
I mean, the funny comment is that one of the things they're saying is it's going to be a sellout Friday.
Yeah.
Because
over 8K, isn't it?
Everyone, there's a lot of reasons for people to go because Pat is still revered. And even though they alluded to the fact that it's not going that well here, he said ultimately that bloke won us the only thing we've ever won.
Yeah.
AJ McGinty, of course, I'd forgotten, was the fly half at that time.
Yeah.
He's come back. Kieran Marmion is an absolute legend there. Jake Heenan spent a lot of time there.
That's right. And who's back coaching them?
And John Muldoon is back there coaching them. And obviously Joyce is there. So I think
we've got a lot of connections.
There's a lot of interest in the game around the actual game itself. So I think it's just a real shame. It's on a Friday night. We can't go.
Galway,
but we have got.
We've got some friends going for the pod going, haven't we?
Yeah.
So we're hoping to get
rovers.
Hoping to get
literally,
a couple of
Deb.
Yeah. So we're hoping to get a couple of roving reporters to send back their things. So all I'm going to say, boys, because we're running out of time, but all I was going to say to you is, what sort of team do you think we'll send there, and what do you think the result will be, Miles?
So interestingly, I think looking at the result of the Saracens game today, I think that's changed things massively. They got, I think, not a point, did they?
They got bageled.
They got bageled at Lyon today, and so they are on 5 points in the table with Bristol. Connacht on 1. So I think the boys at the Craggy podcast are right. They are not going to just lie down and let Bristol steam over them and get 5 points. However,
that's what we need.
You're right, Lee. That is the bare minimum we are going to need on Friday night. Is 5 points. That potentially could take us up to 10 points. I think Saracens are going to do one on Lyon at home because they're in the same situation, aren't they? They must win 5 points. And Connacht, it's pride.
Yeah.
And that's about it. I think it's going to be, you're right, it's going to be a sellout crowd. The history is there, the Bristol players, the Bristol coaches, and they are going to do one on Bristol.
So that reason.
Well, okay, and their very good question was, what are we playing for? We are now 8th in the Premiership. It's not looking like we're going to progress anywhere in the Challenge Cup, is it? Let's be realistic about this. We drop into the Challenge Cup, so the Champions Cup, Challenge Cup, and there's going to be some heavyweight boys dropping down with us. Is Pat really interested in that, or is it just now we're just playing for pride in the Premiership?
We're playing for Bar.
We're playing for Bar. And I'm now struggling to think what earth side are we going to send over to Galway.
I'm not expecting names.
No, you're absolutely right.
I'm going to give you an option. Is it going to be fully loaded? Is it going to be experimental? Is it going to be hybrid?
I think hybrid.
Okay, hybrid.
We have got to smash Bath in 2 weeks' time. We cannot risk any major injuries over in Connacht. I think a hybrid side. If we get some points, we get a win, fantastic. But if we don't, we're locked and loaded for the week after.
Lee, fully loaded, hybrid, experimental.
I hate agreeing with Miles again, but I do think it will be hybrid. I think if we would have beaten Bulls on Saturday, then we could have rested a few players in preparation for Bath. But I just feel like it's going to be a little bit of, throwing a few of the youngsters in and, I mean, the most important game is Bath, and they're flying. They had a great result today, we should say. They beat Racing, didn't they?
Yeah, they did.
29-25, I think it was. But, it's one of those. We lost at home. We're behind the curve, aren't we? And we sent a hybrid team. But having said that, we could. Our youngsters, we got to remember, actually did perform really well against Bordeaux.
Yeah.
And even sending a hybrid team over to Galway, I still fancy us. I really do still fancy us. Yeah. So we could edge our bets and be quids in.
I agree with you, boys. And I did say to you, not allowed to name players, but I'm going to name one. I'd like to see Will Capon get a start. That's just what,
we said that after the game, didn't we?
I think he's unlucky to have been pushed into third place at the moment. I'm not saying Gray's not a good player, but I think Capon is unlucky not to be.
When's he let us down?
He hasn't, and he's a good scrummaging hooker, and he's got good hands, and he made a bit of a difference when he came on Saturday as well. So start for Capon. That's my one thing I'm going to say.
And also, I mean, we have to remember. You remember that the line out where we went right to the back, and it was a really important game, and we
exactly.
Like, it was against the Chiefs, and I mean the guts and the fucking balls to do that, and you think, do you know what? That's what that kid's got, and absolutely, Will Capon with his cap on,
in Galway on a Friday night. We need a bit of a beacon anyway, a bit of a yellow beacon. Right, boys, we're almost there. There's one more thing I wanted to mention, and was the Bristol Bears women. We did mention last week that they'd had a bit of a Christmas break. They were playing Leicester Tigers away. Unfortunately, we didn't have anyone to send us a report on that, but ultimately we suspected they'd win quite easily. The Tigers are a developing side, and lo and behold, it was 50 points to 12 to the Bears women, which was a great result. Well done to that. It's got the new year going.
Back on track.
And I think the next one, there is one next Saturday at Shaftesbury Park.
Yeah, there is.
And I have a feeling that is Harlequins, isn't it? At 1 o'clock. Now, we will probably get some sort of report from that. It's either going to be one of us might go, because it's 1 o'clock, which isn't too bad. Or we have got an offer of, someone's going to send us a report as well. Yeah. So we will do a little bit on that game next week, as promised. But boys, I think that's about it. It was good chat there. We want to get in under the hour. That's our we kind of sometimes get there, but we're generally around that. But as we always say, have a good week, stay safe, and
come on the Bears.